Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you today: the last US soldier leaves Afghanistan, ending America's longest war.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans.
Heavy gunfire is heard in the Afghan capital Kabul as pro-Taliban forces mark the end of Western involvement.
The day that President Joe Biden said the American military mission, the 20-year engagement by US-led NATO forces, would formally end. And this is what you are hearing now.
We'll have reaction from Kabul and Westminster, and we will speak to Afghan refugees.
Good morning. A fresh warning about a shortage of seasonal workers. I'll be looking at how a failure to harvest hops like these could end up affecting the price of your pints at the pump.
Good morning. Sarah Story makes history in Tokyo as she claims her 16th gold medal, becoming Britain's joint most successful Paralympian of all time.
Good morning. Today again is going to be fairly cloudy for most of us, with some light patchy rain or drizzle, especially in the east where it will feel cooler. The best of the sunshine will be in central and western Scotland and Northern Ireland. I'll have all the details a bit later in the programme.
Very good morning. It's a Tuesday, the 31st of August. Our main story for you: 20 years since American troops invaded Afghanistan, the United States has ended its military involvement in the country.
The last flight carrying troops took off just before midnight in Kabul, marking the end of the USA's longest war and once again leaving the Taliban in charge. Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes has more.
The last American soldier to leave Afghanistan. Major General Chris Donahue boarding a cargo plane, the final flight out of Kabul. A hugely symbolic moment, bringing to an end the US mission that started shortly after the September the 11th attacks in 2001. As the C-17 disappeared into the night sky, on the ground the Taliban celebrated with gunfire and fireworks. A victory for them following 2 decades of international engagement in the country and recent weeks marked by violence, bloodshed and chaotic scenes in Kabul. The US withdrawal follows frantic efforts over the past 18 days to fly 123,000 people out of Afghanistan, including 6,000 US citizens.
This has been a massive military, diplomatic and humanitarian undertaking, one of the most difficult in our nation's history, and an extraordinary feat of logistics and coordination under some of the most challenging circumstances imaginable.
During the evacuations, 13 US service members were killed in an attack on Kabul airport by ISK, a local branch of Islamic State. And the US now faces questions over a drone attack on suspected militants, which also claimed the lives of 10 Afghan civilians, including children. Up to 200 Americans are believed still to be in the country.
Look, there's a lot of heartbreak associated with this departure. We did not get everybody out that we wanted to get out. But I think if we'd stayed another 10 days, Louis, we wouldn't have gotten everybody out that we wanted to get out. And there still would have been people who would have been disappointed with that. It's a tough situation.
The US and its allies are now facing up to the Taliban being in charge in Afghanistan and the prospect of building a difficult diplomatic relationship, one that the Americans say will not be based on trust. Within minutes of that final US flight out of Kabul, the Taliban were in control of the airport, apparently in a reassuring mood.
My message to the public and to the Mujahideen is that they must not go for gunfire. They must celebrate this happiness by worshipping the God.
In the meantime, the Taliban's also taken control of abandoned US military hardware, including armoured vehicles and aircraft left behind during the withdrawal. The Americans say the equipment's been decommissioned or rendered useless, but for the Taliban, this is another strong symbol of their newfound power. Peter Bowes, BBC News, Los Angeles.
Well, as the final US flight departed at midnight, Taliban supporters took to the streets to celebrate. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, has this assessment of what lies ahead.
Well, listen, I mean, Listen. Listen, look at the tracer fire in the air. The guns are going off. You can see the streams of red lights. You can see behind me the tracer fire going up in the night sky. All day we had heard the American warplanes circling above the city, flying low as we thought the last American flights were taking off, providing extra cover in these last decisive hours. But it's now the 31st of August in Afghanistan, the day that President Joe Biden said the American military mission, the 20-year engagement by US-led NATO forces, would formally end. And this is what you are hearing now, the eruption of celebratory gunfire by Taliban supporters in the city of Kabul.
Well, that was least set in Kabul the moment the US troops actually left. And the Taliban say the US withdrawal handed Afghanistan complete independence. But many are fearful that they could see a return to the brutal regime of 20 years ago. Lise has this full report.
A new, uncertain chapter starts for a nation of nearly 40 million people, a country which has seen more than 40 years of war. For some, the end of this unprecedented airlift will deepen their fear they'll be left behind, at risk from Taliban reprisals, unable to live under Taliban rule. Those who support the Taliban will welcome the establishment of an Islamic system with rules governing every aspect of their lives. And for millions more in one of the poorest countries on earth, it will be yet another day of trying to make ends meet, of hoping against hope that the world will keep its promise not to forget the people of Afghanistan, no matter who's in charge. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Kabul.
Well, the Prime Minister has promised that international leaders will continue to pressure the Taliban to ensure that people who want to leave Afghanistan can do safely.
In a draft resolution adopted on yesterday evening, the UN Security Council also urged the Taliban not to allow Afghanistan to become a base for terrorism. Our chief political correspondent Adam Fleming joins us now. Adam, good morning to you. We'll be speaking to the Foreign Secretary a bit later on this morning, but what is it do you think the government is hoping to achieve?
Morning. Well, the first thing to say about this UN resolution adopted last night in New York is that it exists at all. China and Russia did not vote against it. They didn't vote for it, but they didn't prevent it happening, which means the international community can say it's kind of talking with one voice when it comes to relations with the Taliban. The second thing to say about it is it's the start of a process. That's how the UK's ambassador to the UN described it last night. And it's a process where the international community will be monitoring what the Taliban says and what it does, and then linking that to actions in the future, perhaps around access by the Taliban to Afghan financial assets, which have been frozen all around the world. Although this resolution is silent about what the international community will do if the Taliban doesn't live up to its word. And then thirdly, there will be a pretty easy way to work out if this resolution is having an effect. And it will be over the next few days whether the hundreds, potentially thousands of Afghans who have the right to go and settle in other countries because they helped other countries when they were in Afghanistan, whether those people can actually make it from their homes to the Afghan border and into neighbouring countries and then on to get safe passage, because the diplomats who are working on this resolution say that that is their number one priority, and we will be able to see with our own eyes and looking at reports from those people in the next few days whether the Taliban is actually allowing that to happen.
OK, Adam, thank you very much for that.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.